4 years together, a proposal, but then she turned my career into a joke in front of everyone. One comment, one glance, and I saw the truth. Was this the moment that changed everything? Sweat trickled down my forehead, pooling at the tip of my nose as I hunched over a tangle of wires in Mrs. Henderson's attic. The ladder creaked under me, and the single bulb dangling from the ceiling flickered like it was auditioning for a horror flick. I wiped my brow with the back of my hand, smirking to myself. Hollywood's got nothing on this blockbuster. Me versus the circuit breaker. Grab your popcorn, folks. My fingers danced through the mess, stripping insulation, twisting copper ends. Every move muscle memory from years of getting shocked and swearing under my breath. Finally, I tightened the last connection, climbed down, and flipped the switch by the attic door. Light flooded the space, steady, warm, perfect. I let out a low whistle. Take that, corporate drones with your PowerPoint slides and your ergonomic chairs. Who's the real hero now? Downstairs, Mrs. Henderson clapped her hands like I'd just cured world hunger. "Oh, you're a miracle worker," she said, shoving a plate of oatmeal cookies at me. I grabbed one, still warm, and grinned. "Just doing my job, ma'am, keeping the world lit, one house at a time." She beamed, and I headed out to my truck, the afternoon sun glinting off the scratched-up hood. That's me in a nutshell. 30 years old, an electrician with a toolbox older than my nephew, and a business card that says, "Jake's Electric. We fix what sparks." Not glamorous, but damn if it doesn't feel good to make something work again. I wasn't always this cocky about it. Took me years to stop feeling like I had to apologize for not having a college degree or a tie collection. But that day, munching on that cookie, I felt solid. Which is funny considering how I met Lisa a couple months later and started wondering if solid was enough. It was one of those stupidly busy afternoons at Brewhaven, the coffee shop downtown. I was behind the counter, elbow deep in a fuse box that had blown because some genius barista overloaded it with a blender and a toaster. Sparks popped, and I cursed under my breath, fishing for my pliers. "Nice hands," came a voice, smooth as the espresso they were pouring. I glanced up, and there she was, Lisa, leaning against the counter, latte in hand, blazer so crisp it could have sliced bread. She had this smile, half curious, half teasing, and I fumbled my pliers like a kid caught staring. "Ever think of doing something less dusty?" she said, flicking her eyes at the grime on my shirt. I shot back, "Only if you trade that fancy briefcase for a tool belt, sweetheart." She laughed, loud, bright, and I swear the room got a little warmer. "Fair enough," she said, sipping her drink. "I'm Lisa. You got a name, electrician guy?" "Jake," I said, wiping my hands on my jeans before shaking hers. Her grip was firm, confident, and I was toast right then and there. We clicked fast after that. She'd text me after her late nights at the marketing firm, all caps about some deadline, and I'd show up at her place with greasy burgers and fries. She'd flop onto the couch, kick off her heels, and say stuff like, "God, you're a lifesaver, Jake. These office boys wouldn't know a wrench from a wine glass." I'd grin, soaking it up, because who doesn't want to hear they're a cut above the suits? One night, she grabbed my hand, tracing the calluses with her thumb. "You're a real man," she said, eyes soft. "Not like those guys I work with, all talk and no spine." My chest puffed up a little, but there was this tiny snag in her words, "not like." I didn't dwell on it. Why would I? She was Lisa, polished and sharp, picking me out of the crowd like I was some rare find. She came to my workshop once, early on. It's this little garage I rent, stuffed with tools and half-finished projects. She stepped in, heels clicking on the concrete, and immediately tripped over a toolbox I'd left out. "Wow!" she yelped, catching herself on a workbench. Then she laughed, brushing her skirt. "This place is cute chaos, huh?" I scratched my neck, kicking the box aside. "Yeah, chaos is my middle name. Keeps the lights on, though." She nodded, wandering around, picking up a coil of wire like it was an alien artifact. "So this is where the magic happens?" she asked, smirking. "Magic, sweat, and a lot of swearing," I said, and she laughed again. That laugh, it was like a drug, but cute stuck in my head, buzzing like a fly I couldn't swat. Chaos was fine, but cute? I let it slide, figuring she didn't mean anything by it. Things were good for a while. Real good. We'd spend weekends bouncing between her world and mine. Her dragging me to brunches with linen napkins, me dragging her to dive bars with sticky floors. I'd sit there sipping overpriced mimosas, thinking, man, I'm out of my league, but she's here with me, so who cares? She'd tell me about her job, all these big words like brand synergy and market penetration, and I'd nod along, pretending I got it. Then I'd talk about rewiring a house or fixing a shorted panel, and she'd lean in, eyes wide, saying, "That's so cool, Jake. You're so good with your hands." It felt right, like we were two puzzle pieces that didn't quite match, but fit anyway. But sometimes, late at night, I'd lie there with her asleep next to me, her head heavy on my chest, and I'd stare at the ceiling. Her hair smelled like lavender, her breathing soft, and I'd wonder what the hell she saw in me. A guy with grease under his nails, a pickup truck that rattles like a tin can, a life built on fixing other people's messes. "You ever gonna trade those heels for my world?" I whispered once, half to her, half to the dark. She didn't stir, and I chuckled to myself. Maybe I'm the fixer in more ways than one, huh? It was a joke, mostly. But there was this itch, this little voice asking if she really got me, all of me, or if I was just the rough around the hedge guy she liked to parade around. I didn't push it. Why would I? We were happy, or at least I thought we were. I'd show up at her place after a long day, boots caked in mud, and she'd pull me inside, laughing about how I smelled like honest work. I'd cook her eggs at midnight when she was too wired from work to sleep, and she'd ramble about her boss or some client who didn't get her vision. I'd listen, nodding, tossing in a sounds like a jackass here and there. She'd smile, squeeze my arm, and say, "You're the best, Jake." And I believed her, I really did. Until I didn't. It's funny how you don't see the cracks until they're wide enough to trip over. That day in the attic, with Mrs. Henderson's cookies still crumbling in my hand, I had no clue what was coming. No clue that Lisa, with her shiny smile and her big city hustle, was going to turn my quiet pride into something I'd have to fight for. But that's later. Back then, I was just a guy with a toolbox and a girl who made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I was more than that. "Here's to sparks flying," I said to myself, starting the truck, the engine rumbling like my own little anthem. I had no idea those sparks were about to catch fire. I was sprawled on my beat-up couch, still in my work boots, when Lisa burst through the door like she'd won the lottery. Her heels clacked on the hardwood, sharp and fast, and she waved a bottle of champagne like it was a trophy. "Big news, babe," she yelled, kicking the door shut with her foot. I'm climbing the corporate ladder, new title, new office, the works. I sat up, grinning despite the ache in my back from a 10-hour day. "Hell yeah," I said, grabbing the bottle from her. "Let's pop this sucker." The cork shot off with a satisfying thunk, foam spilling over my hand, and I laughed as I poured us two mismatched glasses, hers a fancy wine flute, mine a chipped mug that said, "World's okayest uncle." She clinked hers against mine, but before I could even take a sip, she was tapping away on her phone, thumbs flying. "Gotta tell the work besties," she muttered, eyes glued to the screen. I leaned back, sipping the bubbly stuff. Not bad, even if it tasted like overpriced soda. "Hey," I said, wiping my mouth with my sleeve. "I landed a sweet gig today too, wiring up that new Italian joint downtown, custom lighting and everything." She nodded, barely looking up. "That's nice," she said, her voice flat, like I'd just told her I'd taken out the trash. I stared at her, waiting for something, a cool or a tell me more. But she just kept texting, her face lit up by the glow of her screen. "Right," I said under my breath, swirling the champagne in my mug. "Guess my little victory lap can wait." It wasn't a big deal, not then. I mean, she was excited, and I got it. Her job was this whole other universe, meetings, deadlines, people in suits who probably showered twice a day just to feel superior. Mine was simpler, show up, fix stuff, go home with a paycheck and a sore back. But that night, as she rambled about her promotion over cold pizza I'd heated up, I started feeling like a guest in my own damn life. "It's a game changer, Jake," she said, waving her slice around. "More responsibility, bigger clients. I'm basically running the show now." I nodded, chewing. "Sounds like you're killing it," I said, and I meant it. She grinned, but then she added, "Yeah, it's not like your gigs. This is next-level stress." I stopped mid-bite, pizza dangling. "Not like my gigs," I said, half laughing. She shrugged. "You know, it's just different. I let it slide, but different stuck in my throat like a crumb I couldn't cough up. A couple weeks later, we were at this dinner with her friends, the kind of people who say networking like it's a religion. I sat there, nursing a beer, while Lisa held court in a black dress that probably cost more than my rent. She was mid-story about some insane workload when her friend Tara, all highlights and fake lashes, turned to me. "So, Jake, what do you do?" she asked, like she was doing me a favor by noticing me. Before I could open my mouth, Lisa jumped in. "Oh, he's my little electrician," she said, patting my arm. "Keeps the lights on at home when I'm too busy saving the world." The table erupted in laughter, this high-pitched cackle that made my ears ring. I forced a chuckle, but my fingers tightened around the bottle so hard I thought it might crack. Tara smirked. "Aw, that's handy." And Lisa nodded, all proud like she'd trained a puppy. "Yeah," I said, voice tight, "real handy." They kept laughing and I sat there, smile plastered on, thinking, great, I'm the punchline now. Driving home alone that night, Lisa had stayed to catch up with Tara. I muttered to the empty cab of my truck. Guess I'm the sidekick in her superhero movie. Cue the sad trombone. The headlights cut through the dark and I cranked the radio, some old rock song blaring about freedom or whatever. But her voice kept creeping in, that little electrician bit looping like a bad commercial. I'd spent years building something, my business, my name, and she'd shrunk it to a cute nickname in 10 seconds flat. It got worse a few days later. I'd been working on this blueprint for the restaurant job, sketching out a lighting setup that'd make the place glow like a damn cathedral. Took me hours, hunched over my kitchen table with a pencil and a six-pack. But when I showed Lisa, I was grinning like a kid with a gold star. "Check this out," I said, sliding it across to her. She glanced over mid-sip of her coffee and smirked. "Oh, it's like a little art project," she said, tapping the paper with her nail. My chest went tight, like someone had yanked a wire loose inside me. "Yeah," I said, shrugging it off. "Picasso with a screwdriver. That's me." "Ah," she didn't catch the edge in my voice, just launched into a rant about her cutthroat industry, some client who'd trashed her latest campaign. "You wouldn't get it," she said, waving a hand. "This stuff's brutal." I nodded, jaw clenched, staring at my stupid blueprint like it was mocking me now, too. That night, I was hauling ass home from a late job some guy's breaker box had fried during a storm, and I'd spent 2 hours soaked to the bone fixing it. The truck's wipers slapped back and forth, and I turned the radio up loud, trying to drown out the echo of her words. "Not stressful like my job," she'd said once. "Casual as hell. Like my days climbing poles in the rain were a walk in the park." "Sure, lady," I scoffed, gripping the wheel. "Try dangling from a line in a storm while some yahoo yells at you to hurry up. That's a spa day, right?" The sarcasm felt good, sharp, but underneath it, doubt was chewing at me. Was I enough for her? Her world was all glass offices and power lunches. Mine was attics and tool belts. I'd thought we fit, but now I wasn't so sure. By the time I pulled into my driveway, rain still hammering the roof, I was done wondering. I killed the engine, sat there in the dark, and let out a long breath. "She's climbing her ladder," I said to the steering wheel, "and I'm just the guy holding it steady." Well, screw that. I didn't know what it meant yet, didn't have a plan, but something clicked, a switch flipping in my head. I wasn't going to keep grinning through her jabs like some trained monkey. I'd built my life with my own hands, and if she couldn't see that, maybe she didn't deserve a front row seat to it. I climbed out of the truck, boots splashing in the mud, and headed inside. The lights flickered as I flicked them on. My lights, my house, my rules. "Let's see how far that ladder takes her," I muttered, kicking off my boots. "I'm not falling off mine." I was standing in front of my cracked bathroom mirror wrestling with a tie Lisa had dug out of her closet when she swooped in like a drill sergeant on a mission. "Hold still," she said, yanking the knot tight enough to choke a horse. I coughed, tugging at the collar. "Jesus, you trying to hang me before we even get there?" She rolled her eyes, smoothing my shirt with her manicured hands. "Relax, Jake. It's just a tie. You'll survive." She stepped back, sizing me up like I was a project she wasn't quite sold on. "Okay, here's the plan," she said, crossing her arms. "Just talk about your little business tonight. People love a scrappy underdog story, makes them feel all warm and fuzzy. I stared at her, the word little bouncing around my skull like a stray spark. Great, I said, forcing a grin. So I'm the charity case mascot tonight. Should I bring my toolbox for show and tell? She laughed, swatting my arm. Don't be dramatic. You'll be fine. I turned back to the mirror, barely recognizing the guy staring back. Stiff shirt, stiff tie, stiff everything. Traded my work boots for a noose, I muttered, loosening the knot an inch so I could breathe. Lisa was already halfway out the door, heels clicking, yelling back, "Hurry up, we can't be late." I sighed, grabbing my keys off the counter. That whole week, she'd been hyping this company party like it was the Super Bowl, and I'd agreed to go because, well, I'm a sucker for her smile. But standing there, dressed up like some discount prom date, I couldn't shake the feeling I was walking into a trap. The venue hit me like a slap in the face when we pulled up. This swanky hotel downtown, all glass and gold, chandeliers sparkling like they'd raided a pirate ship. Lisa glided out of the car, her black dress shimmering under the lights, a queen stepping onto her throne. I shuffled out after her, hands shoved in my pockets, muttering, "Cue the peasant entering the castle." She grabbed my arm, pulling me inside with a grin. "Come on, you'll love it," she said, like she actually believed it. The lobby was packed with suits sharper than my best pliers, people sipping drinks that cost more than my weekly grocery run. I stuck close to her, feeling every bit like a fish flopping on dry land. She started introducing me right away, dragging me from one group to the next. "This is my fiancé Jake," she said to a cluster of her coworkers, her voice bright. "He's an electrician, fixes anything." A guy in a suit that probably cost $2,000 smirked over his martini. "Handy to have around, huh?" he said, eyeing me like I was a stray dog she'd picked up. I nodded, teeth gritted. "Yeah, that's me," I said, shaking his hand a little harder than I meant to. "Keeping the world running, one outlet at a time." He chuckled, but it was the kind of laugh that made you want to check your back for a kick-me sign. Lisa didn't notice, just kept beaming, steering me toward the next batch of shiny people. The night rolled on, and she was in her element, working the room like a pro. I trailed behind, nursing a whiskey I'd snagged from the open bar, trying to keep my tie from strangling me. Every few minutes, she'd toss out some quip about me. "Oh, Jake's my personal Bob the Builder," she said to a group near the appetizer table, her laugh cutting through the chatter. The crowd snickered, and I downed half my drink in one gulp, muttering under my breath, "Next she'll say I wear a cape and tool belt." A woman with lipstick redder than a stop sign giggled. "That's adorable." I forced a smile, nodding like an idiot, but inside every laugh was a jolt, like grabbing a live wire with wet hands. It got worse when this smug dude in a tailored blazer cornered me by the dessert table. He had one of those faces that screamed, "I've got a podcast about cryptocurrency," and he leaned in, swirling his wine. "So, Jake," he said, dragging out my name like it was a joke, "what's it like running a small operation?" Before I could answer, Lisa swooped in, all teeth and charm. "Oh, he's adorable with his tools," she said, squeezing my shoulder. "Always tinkering around the house." My smile froze, the room tilting a little. Adorable? There it was again, that damn word, like I was a kid with a toy hammer. The guy smirked, "Nice," and Lisa laughed, oblivious, while I stood there, whiskey burning a hole in my stomach. "Yeah," I said, voice tight, "real nice." I broke away after that, finding a wall to lean against near the back of the room. And the party buzzed around me, clinking glasses, fake laughs, Lisa's voice floating above it all. I watched her shine, chatting up some woman in a power suit, her hands waving like she was conducting an orchestra. She looked good, I couldn't deny it, confident, alive, the star of the show. And me, I was the shadow, the guy with the wrong shoes and the wrong job. "She's the lead, and I'm the prop," I muttered into my glass, taking a sip. Every sitcom needs a punchline, right? Another group laughed at something she said, and I caught the tail end. "Fixes anything," followed by more giggles. My pride, that steady glow I'd carried since Mrs. Henderson's attic, flickered like a bulb about to blow. I set my glass down on a passing tray, harder than I meant to, the clink loud enough to turn a couple heads. One of Lisa's co-workers, a short guy with glasses, glanced over, frowning. "You okay, man?" he asked, adjusting his tie. I nodded, shoving my hands back in my pockets. "Yeah, just peachy." I said, the sarcasm dripping. He shrugged and wandered off, leaving me alone again. I looked at Lisa, still dazzling the room, and something shifted. That itch from the truck, that spark of screw that from the other night, it was back, stronger now. I wasn't her mascot, her little electrician, her damn Bob the Builder. I'd built my life, same as she had, and I wasn't here to be laughed at. "Hey," I said, loud enough to catch her eye as she passed nearby. She turned, smiling, mid-sentence with some guy in a vest. "What's up?" she asked, stepping over. I straightened off the wall, meeting her gaze. "You having fun out there?" I said, nodding at the crowd. She grinned. "Yeah, it's great, right?" I didn't smile back. "Sure," I said, voice steady. "Just wondering when I get to stop being the joke of the night." Her grin faltered, just for a second, but she laughed it off. "Oh, come on, Jake. Don't be so sensitive." I held her stare, the noise fading around us. "Not sensitive," I said, low and firm. "Just done playing along." She blinked, thrown, but I didn't wait for her to answer. I turned, grabbed another drink, and let the weight of that moment settle. The party wasn't over, but something else was starting, and I wasn't backing down. I was still nursing that second whiskey, the ice clinking against the glass, when Lisa decided it was her moment to shine. She'd been buzzing around the room all night, but now she grabbed the mic from the DJ like she was about to drop a Grammy speech. I leaned against the wall, watching her under the chandelier glow, her dress catching every light like she'd planned it that way. "Hey everyone," she said, voice loud and bright. "I just want to say thanks to my team. You guys are the best." The room clapped, a polite little wave of noise, and I nodded along, figuring that was that. Then she turned, locking eyes with me, and grinned. "Oh, and a special shout-out to my fiancé, Jake," she said, raising her glass. "Not a corporate guy, but if your dishwasher dies, he's your man." The place exploded, laughter bouncing off the walls, loud and sharp, like 100 hyenas had just walked in. My face went hot, the kind of burn you get when you grab a live wire by mistake. I stared at my glass, the whiskey trembling in my hand, and muttered, "Oscar way roast, babe. I'm the laughingstock of the year." She kept beaming, soaking it up while eyes darted my way, some smirking, some squinting with that fake pity you give a guy who's tripped in public. I forced a half smile, tipping my glass like I was in on it, but inside my guts were twisting. "Hilarious," I said under my breath, loud enough for the short guy with glasses next to me to glance over. "You good?" he asked, adjusting his tie again. "Oh yeah," I said, sarcasm thick. "Living the dream." She finished her toast, handing the mic back, and the party rolled on like nothing happened. But for me, it was like someone had flipped a breaker. Everything went dark and loud at the same time. I set my glass down, the clink lost in the chatter, and pushed off the wall. "Gotta get some air," I said to no one, weaving through the crowd, past the suits and the shrimp platters, until I hit the double doors to the patio. The cold slammed into me, crisp and biting, and I gulped it down, fists clenched in my pockets. My tie felt like a snake, and I yanked at it, loosening the knot Lisa had tied so damn tight. "What the hell was that?" I said to the night, pacing the concrete. Her voice echoed in my head. Not a corporate guy, and every laugh replayed like a bad radio loop. The doors swung open behind me, and there she was, heels clicking, arms crossed. "Jake, why are you out here sulking?" she said, her tone all annoyed mum. I turned, fists still balled up, and let it rip. "Sulking? You just turned me into a damn clown in there." She blinked, caught off guard, then rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd fall out. "Oh, come on, it was a joke. Grow up." I stepped closer, the cold air steaming off my breath. "A joke? You stood up there in front of your fancy friends and made me sound like some loser with a wrench. That's not funny, Lisa. That's humiliating." She sighed, loud and dramatic, like I was the one being ridiculous. "You're overreacting," she said, waving a hand. "It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal?" I snapped, voice rising. "You've been tossing digs at me all night. Bob the Builder, adorable with his tools. What's next? You gonna pat me on the head and give me a cookie?" She crossed her arms tighter, glaring now. "Maybe if you weren't so sensitive, you'd see it's just fun. Everyone loved it." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Yeah, they loved laughing at me, and you loved setting it up." She shook her head, stepping closer. "You know what, Jake? Your job's not exactly glamorous. I was just playing around, okay? Lighten up." That hit me like a sucker punch. Not glamorous. 4 years of sweat, busted knuckles, and building something real, and she'd just flushed it down with one word. I stared at her, the wind whipping between us, and reached for the ring on my finger. "You know what's not glamorous," I said, yanking it off. "Marrying someone who thinks I'm trash." I held it out, the gold glinting in the dim light, and her jaw dropped. "Jake, what the hell?" she said, voice cracking. "We're done," I said, steady as hell, dropping the ring in her hand. "Find someone else to laugh at." She clutched it, eyes wide. "You're serious over this?" I nodded, turning away. "Dead serious. Good luck with your corporate clowns." I stormed back inside, the heat of the room hitting me like a wall. She followed, heels clicking fast, hissing. "Don't you dare make a scene!" I grabbed my coat off a chair, spinning to face her, and let my voice boom. "A scene? You mocked me all night. We're done, Lisa." The room went quiet, gasps rippling through the crowd. Her boss, a tall guy in a gray suit, stood near the bar, arms crossed, watching like a hawk. Lisa's face went red and she grabbed my arm, nails digging in. "You're pathetic," she spat, low and furious. I smirked, pulling free. "Nah, just free." I shrugged on my coat, striding for the door, her heels clacking behind me like gunfire. "Jake, get back here," she yelled. But I didn't stop. People stared, whispering, and I caught snippets. "What's his deal?" "She's pissed," as I pushed through the doors. Outside, I climbed into my truck, the engine rumbling to life with a growl that matched the one in my chest. I laughed, a raw, wild sound that bounced off the dashboard. "Here's to rewiring my life without Her Highness," I said, peeling out of the lot. The street lights blurred past and relief slammed into me, heavy and sweet like cracking open a cold beer after a long day. But there was a sting, too, sharp and sour, of 4 years, and she'd never seen me. Not really. I gripped the wheel, the ring's weight gone from my hand, and floored it. "Let her have her spotlight," I said to the empty cab. "I'm done being the warm-up act." The road stretched out, dark and open, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. She'd lit the fuse, but I'd blown it wide open, and I wasn't looking back. The days after I peeled out of that parking lot were a mess of noise. My phone buzzing like a broken smoke alarm, Lisa's texts lighting up the screen. "You're overreacting," one said, followed by, "Can we just talk?" I scrolled through them, sprawled on my couch with a beer, and laughed. "Sorry, princess," I said, hitting delete on the whole thread. "My inbox is full of self-respect now." I tossed the phone onto the cushion next to me, the silence settling in like an old friend. She kept at it for a couple days. "You're being childish." Then, "Fine, be that way." But I didn't bite. What was there to say? She'd shown her cards, and I wasn't bluffing when I walked away. Then came a message that stopped me cold. It was from Sarah, one of Lisa's co-workers I'd met maybe twice. "Hey Jake," it read, "just wanted to say you're better off. She always talked down about you behind your back like you were some project she was slumming it with. Sorry I didn't see it sooner." I sat there, staring at the words, beer halfway to my mouth. "Well, damn," I said to the empty room, nodding slow. "Yes, I was the fixer she couldn't fix." It stung, sure, but it also lit a fire under me. I wasn't some charity case. I was done letting her spin that story. So I got to work. Real work. Next morning, I was at a new job, wiring up a sleek little cafe downtown. The owner wanted these fancy pendant lights, and I was in my zone, climbing ladders, running cables, barking at my new apprentice, Tommy. "Hey kid," I said, handing him a spool of wire. "Don't just stand there looking pretty. Strip it and clip it." He fumbled, grinning. "You're a hard-ass, Jake." I smirked. "Damn right, screw corporate. We keep the world running, not them." By the end of the week, the place glowed and the owner shook my hand like I'd hung the moon. "You're a wizard," he said. "Nah," I shot back, wiping my hands on my jeans. "Just a guy with a toolbox and a grudge." I took the ring to a pawn shop that weekend. The guy behind the counter squinted at it, then slid me a wad of cash. "Good deal," he said. I pocketed it, grinning. "Better deal for me," I said, already plotting my next move. A few days later, I was in my truck, headed for the mountains, just me, a tent, and a cooler full of cheap beer. That first night, I built a fire, the crackle filling the quiet, stars popping out above like someone flipped a switch. I leaned back in my camp chair, cracking a can. "Beats her tiny hors d'oeuvres any day," I said to the flames, the smoke curling up like it agreed. It was the first time in months I didn't feel her shadow hanging over me,